welcome. This is episode number 6. We are going around the Mazzaroth. This is Real Talk with Casey and JoJo. What's up, Casey?
What's up, JoJo?
I'm super excited. He's excited because we're talking about Virgo. So we started off with the itch in Aries. We went on to toxic and stubborn habits / relationships in Taurus. We talked about the two sides of the coin in Gemini. We did emotional strength in Cancer. The last one was loyalty with Leo. And then now we're going to talk about the little things. So I'm wearing the shirt that says, what does it say? It's the little things in life. And I thought, what better way to represent a Virgo? Just the fact that you guys are so detailed and look at everything, like instead of the macro, you look at the micro, like you look at how things are going to get done, right? Like,
yeah, for sure.
Like, for example, the first thing I think about is when we go on trips. I could see the whole vision of it, but you're like, okay, the details of here and there.
That's freaky because you know what I was just thinking? I was thinking about there's a scene in Vacation, the original movie, where they're planning the trip and he's trying to plan it out and show his family, and he's using like a Pac-Man character, and then his kids come in and shoot it down, whatever. Anyway, but like that, I was literally thinking that when you said trip. But yeah, like I want to know how many miles it is from A to B. I want to know what my gas is.
Where are we stopping?
Yeah, all that shit. What the time frames are.
Right. You break it down into little bits and pieces. And in a relationship, that is so looked over, but it's a necessity. Like, what are the little things that keep a relationship going? What are the little things that make or break a relationship? Like, people don't look at that, but I think when we look at Virgo, this is what we really need to look at here.
Did we tell the story of the Grand Canyon drive? Did we tell that? Has that been told on this podcast? I can't remember.
I don't remember, but that was written in my book.
So that was like one of the most enjoyable experiences for me, specifically because, right, like we had to go from the Grand Canyon to Colorado by a specific time. Like, this was not an option. Failure was not an option.
I think we did talk about it.
So like the whole entire, I mean, we're not talking about like a 2-hour drive. This was like a 9-10 hour drive.
From where to where? Which one?
From the Grand Canyon to Durango or wherever it was in Colorado.
I don't remember. Maybe was it? No, it wasn't that long.
It was like 8. It was a while.
It was a long time.
It was like 8,
like a whole
7,
day.
7 or 8, whatever. But like the Virgo part in me, minute by minute, like I'm looking at my phone and I'm like, we're 7 minutes behind schedule. How can I make up the time? And having to constantly figure out every detail,
analyzing the speed,
to get us to our destination by 8:55 p.m. It's awesome. It's amazing. Anyway.
You got into your Virgo-ness, and that was while we were going through the Grand Canyon. All the elements of Earth were right there. You were all in your element.
Just think about it. Yes.
It's hard for me as a fire sign to get grounded, but that's what you're for. So let's talk a little bit about going back to our timeline, because in this entire journey going through the Zodiac, we are giving experiences from our relationship story and
saga.
And when we get to
tragedy,
this timeline of where we're at, where we're separated, and we're starting to do a lot of inner work and realizing that everything we kept looking at for the other person to change was really all the little things that we needed to change within ourselves. And we didn't really notice that, but we were like on our way to start going, okay, I need to analyze myself, right? And this is right when we were separated, the kids were little and Christmas was coming. Something about the holidays, right? Christmas is coming, and you gave me the chipmunk gift of going to a cruise to the Bahamas.
It's not a chipmunk gift.
Well,
that was all for you. I didn't enjoy that at all.
What? Yes, you did.
I know, of course I did.
That was actually when we did enjoy it. all the other times was like, not so much. But that one time I remember we enjoyed it. We didn't have the kids. We didn't have all of the, the same location type
just
of.
the programming and the habitual repetitive things in your life, like day to day, getting the kids to school, making their lunch, blah blah blah,
having to see that we were in different
work
homes,
schedule.
that we were separated. But then like here we are on a cruise where we're together. There's no worries in the world. It's just us. So I kind of feel like you knew that you would decide sometime between the beginning of this, cruise, if you're going to move back in or not. Right.
Well, yeah. And I think, if I'm not mistaken,
I'm trying
to like go back in my mind and remember this, because this was like 12 years ago. And I think like I had rented an apartment, and I think my lease was coming up, and it was like, let's go on this trip and see how it goes. If it's complete shit, then we probably need to, continue on our path. If not, then a decision has to be made, because we're always in limbo. We've always been in limbo. It's like, I want to, but I can't. I want to, but I can't. So yeah, so the Virgo part of me was like, let's just take this trip. It's a chipmunk gift. It'll be for both of us. See what happens.
And that was when we went on that cruise where we ended up going on that game show about the wedding game show. And then the entire cruise ship knew who we were and what my bra size was.
That was one of the questions. What was her bra size?
They're like, oh, I know your bra size. Like, yeah, great. Nice.
Which I got wrong, by the way.
Yeah, he did. I'm like, what? I'm bigger than that.
But I know it now. Don't make me say it. I'm not going to say it.
I know.
But I know it now.
It was so crazy because did we win?
Yeah, we won. Shit.
We won. On, we won. I was like, wait a minute, because I remember they gave us like champagne, and it was really cool because we got to really recap our relationship while we were kind of there to analyze our relationship. And here we are playing a game that has to do with our entire lives. I think that had a lot to do with how things went, What
do you mean?
Like it happened after? Yeah, like it happened for a reason. Like it made us bond more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was like, I remember, we went on the game show and that was cool. And then,
they played it over and over on the ship.
I remember being like stupid drunk. Do you remember that? Like, we were sitting in that club, and it was just me and her. Just like, we weren't even standing, because I don't think we had the ability to. We were just sitting in chairs, just dancing in our seats, like wilding out. And then I remember going back to the room, and of course, what happens when you get back to the room. But yeah, I mean, the whole weekend was amazing, and it was like, the fuck, like, this is what I want. Like, I want this in my life. Like, this is like, we still have it. We still got it. And then we go back to reality. Snack back to reality.
Well, that's when you said, okay, I'm going to move back in, by February 14th. You were going to start moving your stuff back in. And so you did,
Is it February 14th, Valentine's Day, right?
Yes. Do you remember what happened that Valentine's Day?
I don't. Please tell everybody what I did.
You don't have to if you don't want me to.
No, please tell everybody what I did.
Really? You don't even remember?
No, I don't remember. But that was 13 years ago.
Okay, so I had given you a card, because we always give each other a card. And that was that night that I don't know, I got upset because you hadn't given me a card. And then you got upset at me because I got upset. And so you went to your car and you took out the card that you had, because you had a card there. And you said, here's your card. And you threw it at me.
What?
Yeah. And
threw it at you, like tossed, or like
you threw it at me
like a frisbee.
You threw it at me, and then you walked off and you went back to your other apartment and slept there that night.
Nah, you lying.
But then what really I don't know, it's there. It's in my diary. But what I don't remember, I think you came back later on because I was crying and stuff. And I think you realized you made a mistake and came back. But I don't remember that part. And if you don't remember the whole situation, well, then I'm fucked.
No, I don't remember it. Well, it's funny too, because like, we always talk about.
You
these
want me
things.
to read
we
it?
Always, no, I know. We always talk about these things, and it's like,
this is why you need to keep a diary.
I sound so abusive, man. Like,
yes, but like we hadn't changed yet. All of this is like,
but
listen.
Like, what did you do?
I
want to know what you did.
I know. Hold on. We're going through the top part of the zodiac. Okay. You guys have to understand, This is the daytime. Okay. This is the positive influence. The bottom is the negative influence. I'm talking about the zodiac right here, right? We are still talking about the positive influence. All of the stuff that is coming up to the light is so we can work on it.
And this is the last sign.
This is the last sign before we move into the darkness. Right. And so guess what happens in the darkness?
Yo, and it's not about,
that's where we come in, and that's where I start talking about all the bad things I did.
Yeah, but it's not cool, great,
because it's coming
as we go into that, though. Like, it's interesting because you're talking about what I did, right?
Yeah,
but like, I know I wasn't that, because I wasn't that big of an asshole.
Like, I think your ego had taken over you. I swear. Like, if we don't know or understand our ego and how it works, it can really grab a hold, and it knows exactly how to do it. And you know exactly, as Virgos, you guys are really quick at, criticizing or being very, what is it? Digging at the right place, and you know how to turn it and jab it, like right when they need it too. Like, you know how to do that. That's the Virgo-ness. It is a skill. It's like, a skill.
Dude, I remember as a kid, like, just could talk shit with the best of them and knew exactly what to say in the right moment. But still, you do. I mean, I wish I knew like what led up to that. You know what I mean? And that's
you
more
were
so
upset because I gave you a card and you didn't give it to me, even though you had it in the car. You felt bad that I felt bad because you didn't give it to me. You talked about that the other day in Relationship Tuesday in the QE Academy. Shut up.
Remind me.
What
I talked about in Relationship Tuesday, because I don't remember. We do so many of these, like I don't remember. Like, no, it's just out of sight, out of mind.
What's the whole theme here that I'm talking about?
Virgo, the little things, the analytical part.
No, what I just said.
Oh, you were talking about on Relationship Tuesday how I got mad at you for getting mad at me.
Oh, no. That's what you were giving an example of, how you used to do that, how you used to get mad at me for me being upset because of you making me upset. Like, you would be mad at me because you made me upset, when that's not even, like, you should be there for me when you make me upset, not be mad at me, like throw dirt on top of.
And I think that's what would happen is, like, your ego takes over, and because we're so good at doing the right things, saying the right things, pushing the right buttons, and I'm not gonna lie, I mean, there is still a part of me, but like, it's almost, it's I say enjoyable, but that's probably not the right word. But there is a part where you just, like, you get something out of it. You know what I mean? Like, when you tell that person off at the grocery store, like, it feels good in a way.
Well, the ego likes it. It's not the feel good, like bliss, like peaceful feel good. Like, oh,
it's a dark.
I was Christ-like to this person, like that type.
It's a revenge feel good.
Right. Like, it's the bad. Like I said, it's the good and the bad. Right. So, and we all have that. Right. But that's what was taking over at that time. You hadn't gone through your transformation yet. You hadn't hit rock bottom yet. Like, it wasn't until I started doing all these things bad to you, or that made you feel bad, that made you feel like you had to go to the deepest part of you, that you changed. Until this point, it was still, back and forth. Yeah, we're analyzing stuff. Yeah, should we get back together? Should we not? But we weren't analyzing ourselves yet.
No.
Like, deep down the way that it should, and spiritually, like, we were still in our emotional mind. Well, not mind, but we were in our emotions, and we were in our mind, analyzing with our heart and our mind, That's what was going back and forth, but the spiritual sense of everything was still not there.
We were loving each other conditionally.
Very much so. Yes.
Very conditionally.
Yes.
And within a program of our own upbringing, within a program of our own experiences, not able to grasp, like, the other person's point of view, not even willing to understand the other person's point of view. Because I remember, like, when you fighting with someone, and just a constant trying to prove that I'm right and you're wrong, right? You trying to prove that you're right and I'm wrong. Going through the endless details at 6:07 p.m. You said this, and then I said this. It's like, what the fuck?
The
like
little things.
The little things, right? The little things. It's like, none of that shit matters. but yeah, wow, like that's so sobering. I don't
To know
know.
that you're not like that anymore. And what's crazy is you forgot that, like when you're in that moment, when you're in your ego, it kind of protects you from memory. Like it blocks it out. So like when you have a trauma and there's some dark feeling, it'll block that from your memory so that you don't feel that pain. Right? It's like it's masking it, but it's still there. So you don't even remember that incident because your ego masked it so that you wouldn't realize how dark you really were.
Yeah, like it was death by a thousand cuts, right? Like just death by a thousand cuts for you. Damn, I'm sorry. That's
It
crazy,
was
man.
little by little by little, and then here came like me uh taking and taking, and yeah, I did my little things here and there, but they were still very little in comparison. And eventually, the beast the beast was like, no more. I kept turning the other cheek, like, this is what you're supposed to do, aren't you? Aren't you?
Yeah, and if
And then eventually I was like,
yo,
no more.
yeah, and if I'm being honest, I mean, I remember, back then, I respected you, but I didn't,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there was, and
Because
it
you didn't
wasn't
respect yourself.
right, and it wasn't like blatant. I mean, and situationally, it was blatant disrespect, but it was
Right.
like it was just not respecting you in a lot of little ways, right? And then I remember,
Well,
like
we
finding,
barely talked then too.
yeah, and I remember finding out, when we get into the dark chapters, I remember finding those things out, and I remember just like, holy shit, like realizing that, like I did the level of full respect did not happen until that happened, and that's just shitty. It's just unfortunate, but
You mean until
that
I
was my
flipped the
path.
script?
Yeah, and so you showed me what you can do, and you showed me how bad you can hurt me, and not that you did that for that purpose, but from my perspective, like that's what I felt and what I saw, and I'm like, yo, okay, respect, like respect. I
So
got
you're
you, man.
talking about maybe like your dark side was like, let me see, I don't respect until I see her dark side, and then when our dark my dark and your dark meet up, they have to match up. Like I have to be just as dark as you and you have to be just as dark as me, so that we can understand each other, so that we can
Yeah,
be
man.
unconditional with one another.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you
I
got to
don't.
love I mean, you got to love and be accepting and unconditional. You know how hard that is to be unconditional, especially if you've been brought up with conditions, which
Which we
we
all
all have.
have.
So imagine that, and then having to flip it upside, like inside out, for love.
Yeah,
That's hard as fuck.
yeah. I had the which we all have threw me off because I had something to add to that. Okay, yeah. So we don't ever talk about it, right? Like, or I don't hear people talking about this. Like, you said a beautiful statement, honoring the darkness within each other,
Right.
right? Like, you have to. There's no choice, and it's darkness in terms of everything. I mean, everything that you think, everything that you feel, the things you've done in the past. Like, I feel like if you hide that from your spouse, if you truly want to have like a deep, satisfying, connected relationship, like, you just have to know. You have to know everything, and the darkness. Like, when you showed me your darkness, it made I had to make a decision. Do I accept it or do I not? And if
And then you also have to realize that your own darkness, you're like, well, I have to because she accepted my darkness to a certain degree, right? Like, so who would I be if I didn't accept her darkness, type deal? Which is kind of why I took it, really. I mean, if you think about it.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's just crazy, man, because again, on a simple level, and it's almost embarrassing to say this, like, if I even remotely, like, I've trained myself now in terms, I say train, that's a really bad way to say it, but like, I don't, before, I would always, because we weren't giving it to each other, it was almost like we would seek out attention from other people, but just a small amount of attention, not like taking it to the full extreme.
Right.
But that little bit,
That's the ego though, but
right, that little bit of attention, made me feel better, made me feel more like, I don't know, just better. And now, I don't even think in those terms, but I remember like having to shift the mindset from looking outside for even the smallest amount of validation, for even the smallest amount of support, for the lending ear that hears about all my fucking problems and tells me it's all going to be okay, whatever. Like I had to break away from that and learn to let go, like work on it within, talk about it with you. And that was hard. It was hard to do because that's one of the habits that we have been in for so long. It's like, and I'm talking about the littlest things, but it's like surrendering to you, surrendering to myself, surrendering to the dark side, the light side, and just making a commitment to be fully into this path and where we're going.
Okay,
right?
and let me just back up when you said surrendering to the dark
Before
side
you say that
before
though,
they clip that part out and then use it against us. What?
what do you mean?
You're like surrender to the dark side. People, how could they just take one thing and then they're like, see,
That's the
they
truth though.
no, but let me clarify what that means. It's not like honoring some darkness or whatever. It just means, like, let's make it into simple terms. If there's something that which I shouldn't even be judging whether it's good or bad or whatever, right? But his experience, we all judge, oh, this was immorally incorrect, or he shouldn't have done this, or he should have done that. That's still judging, right? So if I look at him with in observance and with a neutral mindset of just, this is the experience that he went through, I could have easily gone through that same experience myself. So would I want that same type of judgment back on me? It comes back to that golden rule, right? Treat others how you would like to be treated. And I remember how I was treated when all this stuff was happening. So I also knew not to treat you in that same way when I started doing things. So it's kind of like, how can you truly understand somebody's darkness unless you can understand your own? And because we all have it. And
Yeah.
if we keep denying our darkness or suppressing it or pretending like it's not there, that's what we mean by honoring the darkness. It's acknowledging that it's there, acknowledging that we have thoughts that could be evil in nature, without even us knowing that. Um, so that's what you meant by honoring the darkness, like
Right. Yes.
somebody's mistakes. I mean, darkness is really just,
But it's also honoring the darkness in terms of when I threw the card, right? When you shared information, there's an honoring, like you said, of I have to be with this pain. I can't do anything about this pain. It is what it is. I can't mask it, going out and drinking, going out and finding another girl, getting revenge, doing this. There's no that's the
like
loop.
swallow it.
That's the loop, right? Yeah, you have to honor it and sit with it and let it be present, because there's lessons in that,
Yeah.
right? There's growth in that, and it transforms. Like your ego is so sneaky and so tricky, and like you said, it makes you forget that you did things, and it shifts things to where you don't even think about necessarily the consequences. You're not thinking about the next
Right.
step, the next step, the next step, which is crazy because like that's what I do. Like I'm analytical. But when that ego kicks in, man, and that emotion starts moving, it's like
Analyzing goes out the
you
window.
forget. Yeah, you forget everything. But it transmutes that ego into, and brings, by honoring the darkness, I think it brings the ego up into a lighter or a higher frequency, so that it becomes more manageable, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not able to strike at like it did in the past, in the old you, before you transmuted it. You're aware of it and
Right.
acknowledge it, and therefore it just doesn't encompass and take you over
Because
in the heat of the moment.
before it would take over and we were unaware of that.
Right.
But now it's about acknowledging and becoming aware of it. Because then when you're aware of it, then you can shift it. But before,
Correct.
how could we shift it if we weren't even aware of what it was doing? And at
Right.
the same time, it was like making us forget things too. How
Yeah.
often can we say this is happening constantly
Yeah. I
with
mean,
everyone?
it's living in a world where both people expect an apology, but no one's willing to take the first step and make the apology. And it's just, yeah, it's awful.
You're hurting yourself. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, we were hurting ourselves.
Right. And again, it's back to when you're in that loop, it's very difficult to get out of it. I mean, you want to, and you know it's happening, but like it's just habitual. That trigger happens and you start that fight, and you see that darkness, and then it's a battle. And then you wake up the next morning and you're pissy, and you try to fix it, and then you just do it again.
And it's funny because this is called the little things, and it could be the smallest little thing that would trigger you that will blow up into something huge later. And it's those small things. But let's flip that into, what were the small things that kept us going though?
Yeah.
Little things.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
Can you think of any?
Yeah, I mean, I know for me, like, you would hit me with, some letter, or, I don't know if a poem is necessarily the right word, but yeah, right. Like, you'd write things, you'd do things, you'd make things, you were creative. Um, you would do things for me, like, just from a couple standpoint, like, I don't know, lingerie or whatever, or, things like that. I mean, it was always like that was your go-to. And like for me, I would do sweet things too. If you want to ramble some off
Like
of all the good
making
things that I
coffee
would do,
for me and taking it to bed, and like leaving me little
driving
notes,
to
and
Charlotte to pick you up from an airport.
right. I mean, that's little, but it's big. um you did a lot of little things for me in the beginning, with the
For
flowers
sure.
and stuff like that. Then it just translated into the little things of stuff that usually gets dismissed, I think, after a relationship has been together for a really long time. Like if he sees that I'm busy, so he takes our kids to wherever they need to go. Those little things is like the stuff in the background in order for you to do what you got to do, gets taken care of.
Without having to even ask, it's just an
Right.
understanding.
So those are
Right.
like little things, but they're big because they make everything flow. Like it's like a clock. I'm seeing like all these like gears. Like if you're missing one little piece, the rest of it can't function. And you're that missing little piece. Not missing, but I'm saying you're that piece that there's always a little thing. There's always a little thing.
Right. And I think, as you're talking about, as we're talking about this, like I'm thinking about, and I mentioned this before, like we don't do a lot of the little things anymore for each other,
Right.
right? And it's interesting because like that, it shouldn't be that way. Like we
But
need
we
to,
do in a sense, like,
yeah,
the
but I
little
mean like
things that,
more, I mean like more tactful little
yeah,
things.
right.
You know what I mean? Like a card or leaving a note or whatever.
Unless we're doing a challenge in the academy, and but that helps us kind of
But I
do
think
those
it
things.
it it leads it lends credence to a bigger pattern, is that we were in this pattern of loops of mistreating, disrespecting, whatever, doing the little things occasionally, but just overall just shit. And then we translate over here into this bigger circle where now our relationship functions on a deeper level, like, the honesty, the integrity, all the things that we didn't do over here. But in doing so, it's like we've forgotten about all the little stuff that kept us together. So it's like, if we can take that and combine it with this, now we all up in this,
Yeah,
right?
I want to bring something up that's
Can you hold on that for a second?
yes.
And so I know I just wanted to finish this. So my point is that like one of my sort of I guess understandings or aha moments over the last week or so has been, our ego, it's so good that it will, even when you're doing well, it will tell you how well you're doing and how awesome that you're doing. Look at all this that you are now. And because we're talking about all the shit over here, and it's like, I used to do that, really, I would never do that now. Yeah, go me. But the reality is that that's still your ego talking to you. It's just talking to you in a different manner, keeping you in this stuck
It
position.
has many disguises.
Right. When there's still all the little things that I used to do that I don't do anymore that will require me to put in effort. But my ego is telling me how awesome I'm doing up here, which is good, but it's still the ego. So my point is that we have to balance out, even when you're doing well. There's still things you used to do really well that you're probably not doing now because your ego is telling you how awesome that you are. And there's more that still needs work. There still is work to be done if that's the case. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Hopefully you guys understand.
So
I'm glad you understand.
can I say this part that's not like I'm kind of flipping it, like it's uncomfortable for you, but whatever.
I'm used to it.
Yeah. So, talking about Virgos and talking about the little things. You know where I'm going with this?
No, I have no idea.
So back then, right, when things weren't really going in the greatest direction, and we haven't really got to this point as far as the timeline, but I'll fast forward a little bit. We weren't really doing so well, right? And this is when we had separated at the end, okay? And it's those little things that were keeping me connected to you that you were no longer doing anymore, that kind of got me looking in the other direction. So for example, I was getting good nights every night. Remember? Every single night it was good night, good night, good night, for months and months and months. And it was that little good night that I kind of started to expect, and kind of was part of my security, my safety, my root, like
Yeah, so it was paying you attention, it was giving you attention, paying attention to you.
But it was small, because it was just making sure it was just a good night. And that was, I knew I could rely on that one good night. I couldn't rely on anything else, but I could rely on that good night. And that I started to attach to. Like, it was that little thing, it was the little good night that kept me kind of there, to the point where that became a relationship. But it was months before it became a relationship. And that happens a lot with people without realizing it in a relationship, is that one little small thing that somebody else does, you might not even realize how big that can be, or how big that can turn. But if it's steady enough and it's small enough, it's like leaking, right? Like a water droplet. You do that enough, you're going to fill the tank.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time.
Right. So pay attention to the little details, because it was those small details that made me go into a different direction. But we're going to get into that when we go into that episode. So.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect example of the ego, right? Like your ego latched onto that, and it wasn't a bad thing. I mean, it was in the sense of, if you're in a relationship, like a committed relationship, and you're not going through what we went through, you shouldn't be doing that. But still,
Right. But we were like separated.
But regardless, I mean, it's still, I don't care who you are. I mean, that's a nice thing to do. Like, that would feel nice, especially if you're feeling like shit in other areas of your life.
Exactly.
Right? And
like we were crushed, and that good night was the only thing that like kept me going.
Right. No, I get it. But that's again a good
example.
Very
tactical of a Virgo.
But it's a good example of the ego taking onto something. It's a good thing. And then, creating something else. So you have to be aware of the ego on even when it's congratulating you as well. And I struggle with that. You know what I mean? Yeah, no, I mean, I think we all do. I mean, we all get comfortable, we all get into a place of comfort. And, I think the older we get, like the more habitual we get, the harder it is to break out of your patterns, especially the longer you've been in a relationship. Right. And, you always hear people say relationship is work. And it is, but it's almost the work. It's the inner work that you have to do to keep a division from happening, because you're not willing to look within.
Right. You have to be in acceptance. You have to be in forgiveness. You have to do all these things that are super hard to do, but you have to learn to do that.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I mean, if you're not going to do it with the one you're with, you're going to have to do it with the next one. I mean, maybe the next one does things a little bit better here or a little bit better there. But at the end of the day, it comes down to you. It's all about you.
Do you still have patience, or do you not have patience? Do you have acceptance, or do you not have acceptance? Are you always going to be putting a condition on them, regardless of who they are? Are you conditioning is it because of the conditions that have been placed on yourself? There's a lot of things to look at, and it really starts from the smallest thing, and asking yourself questions that go deeper and deeper from that. So yeah, I mean, Virgo analyze the little things. What else, babe? It's virgin consciousness. It's like starting over. It's having like a cleansed palette to, and you guys are all about cleanliness or whatever. It's about having like
order.
Like a clean slate, so that you're able to analyze everything from there on out. And I think that's where we're at in this whole cycle and in this whole season.
Yeah, agreed. Cool.
So we're done. That was Virgo. And next,
I'm ready to get up in your shit.
I know,
Let's
right?
go.
So
Damn.
next episode, we're gonna start going into the darkness, into fall, winter, which is basically Libra, the scales. That's where we start looking at, okay, the balance. You did this to me. Did I this to you, etc. We're gonna go into Scorpio, temptation, which is like, here we go, all the way around until we're here where we are now, doing podcasts every single day with my best friend and everything. So thank you guys for watching. We will see you next time, and we're out.